Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Asorza wash processed Peru from Say Coffee. And there's the box right there. And Say, based out of Brooklyn, New York. And no need for much of an introduction, as they're one of the most popular coffee roasters in the entire world, and one of our most featured coffee roasters on this channel. Our previous review also featured a Peruvian geisha, that one of course coming from September Coffee Company, as it felt like a great opportunity to compare and contrast two Peruvian geishas, one coming from one of the most popular Canadian coffee roasters, and this one coming from one of the most popular American coffee roasters. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how they compared, as this right here is day 40. And we pushed the recipe on this one a little bit to be more in line with the recipe we have for Say, at a 17:1 water to coffee ratio, brewed at 99 degrees Celsius, about 210 degrees Fahrenheit. And I like this one best through the V60, which typically indicates a more medium fine grind. We did go a little bit more fine on the grind with this one as well. Now, roast profile for this coffee, as we've mentioned in the past, Say is definitely one of the lighter roasting American coffee roasters out there, and this one even felt a little bit lighter than some of the coffees we have had from them as well. So you could say that this one is definitely on the lighter side of things by most standards and metrics, and even a little lighter than, again, by Say standards. With all that out of the way, let's go and start discussing this coffee. Day 14, first impression, and we did opt for the V60 with the cup mostly remaining on the subtle side of things, giving it a lot of the classic geisha-like graininess to the cup, though it did open up a little bit as it cooled down with some of the listed mixed berry attributes that was reminiscent of some of the washed Ethiopian coffees we've had from Say in the past as well. Slightly lemon-like with a little bit of the lemongrass, but for the most part, a good start. Didn't make too much or didn't take too much away from this first try. Continue on to day 17 as we opted for the Chemex, and it was even more soft and subtle than the previous day, offering a more traditional Say profile with more of the softer citric attributes, as well as a average, we'll say above average level of brightness, reminiscent of, once again, that lemongrass-like component. And a lot of people know what I'm referencing when I'm saying that this is that more classic Say-like profile that we've experienced in the past, where once upon a time a lot of their coffees used to lend itself towards this direction. So as a result, this one wasn't necessarily quite as good as that first try. We continue on to day 20 as we opted for the April brewer, and there was definitely increased sweetness and clarity to the cup as it continues to skew on the geisha side of things versus the origin, with an increase in the florality, much more in line with the sweeter honeysuckle aspects. There's more of the citrus, but in a better balanced sense, as at this time it was reminiscent of what I've described as a lemon lime soda. Overall, significant improvement on this day, as you can feel the coffee is definitely opening up with a little bit more time. Day 23, up to temperatures, more fine grind, and it felt like the coffee is the best that had been up to this point by a distance, with increased sweetness and much more of the soda-like herbality as well as florality to the cup. Very clean and delicate, with the profile a bit more subtle on the listed berry attributes once again. Slightly tart with a darker berry sense to it, but overall a very nice day. We're definitely seeing even more improvement with this coffee. Continue on to day 26 as we opted for the Chemex with the same adjustments, and surprisingly it was the best that had been up to this point, with a very high level of sweetness and intensity, skewing this time a little bit more on the berry side of things. It felt a little bit more candied in that sense as well, with a lingering sugar sweetness, plenty of the trademark Say bright attributes again, with that lemonade-like feel to it. Another really nice day of this coffee, as I'm continuing to see it trend in a very positive direction. Day 29 through the V60 with the same adjustments, and the cup was back to being at its best, as this time I would say it was on par with our previous experience, with a little bit more of the sweeter soda-like attributes as it continues to remain very intense, with a little bit of the herbality yet again, a little bit more of the sugary sweetness too. So we're seeing consistency in this coffee too once it has opened up, so definitely a lot of positives to take away on these last couple of days. Continue on to day 32 as we opted for the Chemex, and the same with this cup as it continues to remain reminiscent of that sugary berry soda energy drink, as it has a very sweet and lingering herbality, as well as the berry lemon lime mixture that kind of made it feel like a mixed berry lemonade, a mixed berry Sprite, just kind of this very interesting feel to it. But at the end of the day, barely opted for the V60 over the Chemex, as the cup was so consistent regardless of the brew method, but we tried it one more time with that same recipe and it continues to yield very nice success and consistency with more of the berry lemon lime soda-like attribute to the cup. Hyper sweet for a Say coffee, and it's been kind of interesting that over the last, we'll say, couple of months, a lot of the coffees we've had from Say have been on the significantly sweeter side of things relative to the experiences we've had from them, we'll say, in years past. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And we have quite a few level 4s, so let's go through those. And we'll start with the cleanliness level 4. So as we mentioned in the September review as well, there was so much clarity, and it's one of those things where it's kind of on the knife's edge as to whether or not we wanted to bump it up to a higher level. I think for me, what was maybe a little bit of a sticking point was that the berry attribute in this one didn't feel maybe as well defined, maybe as precise. So as a result, that might have been something that took away from it ever so slightly. The citric quality as well could have felt a little bit more generic too. So I think those things may have taken away from it ever so slightly. But even then, obviously this is going to be on the cleaner side of things, even for a lot of the coffees that we have from Say. I do have to say that this is probably one of the cleaner coffees we have reviewed from them, probably in, we'll say, the last couple of coffees we have reviewed from them. Finish, level 4. It does have a very nice finish to it. I keep harping on that herbality that's present on this one because it was persistent throughout, and as a result, it's something that kind of left that lasting finish to it in addition to that citric attribute. So plenty of positives to take away in that sense as well. Sweetness, level 4. And this one's definitely on the higher side of level 4. I think it's kind of only secondary to some of the Mejorado coffees we have had from Say that also turned out to be hyper sweet coffees, and that's what I keep continuing to harp on. But I also think it probably has a lot more to do with the coffees that I'm opting to purchase from Say, because I have tried plenty of their other coffees, either at a coffee shop or in some other capacity, and as a result, it hasn't been as sweet. But that being said, I continue to pick these very sweet ones, and this one was yet another one, as I think it's on the higher side of the level 4, one of these sweeter Peruvian coffees we have had as well. Acidity, level 4. Yes, it's a very bright cup of coffee, and I think that was fully expected. And given that it offered a lot of those more classic Say characteristics to it in that sense, then I can definitely see a fair bit of that too. We're also pushing it, so I was fully expecting to get a little bit more of that within this coffee. Florality, level 4. It's one of the less discussed components of this one, though it was, I want to say, probably more pronounced than some of the other characteristics to it. The honeysuckle, mentioned it early, mentioned it not too often, but it's definitely one of the better defined as well as more, we'll say, pronounced characteristics on certain days. Definitely adds a fair bit of sweetness to the cup in general. Berry fruit, level 4. I definitely feel like that one was generous. And if I recall correctly, I believe one of the notes they have listed on here is mixed berry, and it was just that very soft mixed berry component. And even if it was a little bit more subtle, I felt, okay, it's pronounced enough, maybe at least on the day we made the tasting wheel, to justify the lower side of level 4. But again, I continue to focus on the fact that it just reminded me of, I'm thinking specifically of one of the, say, Ethiopian coffees we'd reviewed in the past that had that very soft kind of delicate mixed berry feel to it, but it was maybe clean enough, the rest of the coffee, that you could kind of feel that in that more subtle yet pronounced sense to it. Citrus fruit, level 4. As I kind of mentioned, it has that lemon lime soda herbality component to it, and that's the thing I continue to focus on the most, mostly because it was similar to what we had from the Percy Pintado, the Peruvian Gesha we reviewed from September Coffee Company. Both of them reminded me a lot of soda energy drinks, though that one a little bit more intense, as this one, while still intense, never reached the point where I said, okay, we could probably tone this one down ever so slightly, as it was, I want to say, maybe a little bit more even in a lot of aspects. And then, honestly, I think the only other thing worth discussing in this tasting wheel is the body at a level 3, as it did have a fair bit of body to it. I think that may be one of the rare origin characteristics that we do have of this coffee, because truth be told, it didn't really offer too many of the Peruvian-like characteristics. It definitely skewed a lot more on the Gesha-like characteristics on this one. But as I'm looking at this tasting wheel, I do think it's a pretty good representation of what I was getting from this coffee. All right, so my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. I also really liked this one. I liked both of the Peruvian Geshas that we had reviewed from September as well as Say. And just kind of thinking on the big takeaways I had from them is those specific soda-like, energy drink-like characteristics that I've been referencing. Very high on that kind of lemon lime sort of lingering herbal finish to it that gave it a very intense and sweeter feel to it. And I think if you asked me to pick one that I enjoyed a little bit more, perhaps I'm leaning slightly more towards the September version, but truth be told, I really enjoyed both of them, but for very different reasons. I enjoyed that one because it did offer such great intensity and sweetness, and perhaps quite a few things in it. This one, though, I enjoyed more for having a little bit better of balance, and in addition to that, it was just a kind of an easier and a little bit more consistent coffee overall, as no matter what I seemed to do with this one, I was able to get a very nice and enjoyable coffee. But I think the highs of that one, that's maybe the best way to kind of compare them. The highs of the Percy Pintado, I think I enjoyed a little bit more than the highs of this one, but as a whole, I would say that this one right here just had a little bit more consistency to it, and every single cup was about the same. So there weren't really any big lows with this one. There were some lows that weren't quite as good with the other one, but this one right here just seemed a little bit more consistent in general. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to, I feel like if you like Peruvian gestas in general, because that seems to be a theme with these coffees, is that they do offer that, I want to say, kind of sugary energy drink, sort of bubble gum, sort of lemon lime soda, herbal components to them. This one right here is another great example of that, with a sweeter base to it as well. Great clarity and plenty of the classic Say characteristics to it. Of course, that being those citric attributes and a little bit more depth as well. You're getting some florality, you're getting some berry fruits as well. So just more than a one note coffee, a little bit of, we'll just say, diversity within this one. I think that's the best way I can leave this review. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And this right here has been a review of the Mario Asorza Wash Processed Peru from Say Coffee. Thank you for watching.